Hi, welcome to Here Comes the SOAR. Getting rid of my sort of Beatles pun early on in the title there. But for anyone reading that title and sort of thinking, well, that's a bit ominous, don't panic. SOAR's not here to take our jobs. It's here to help us get rid of those menial tasks, leaving humans to make decisions and focus on key areas. So, a little bit about me. Currently, I'm a SOAR product owner and technical lead for a global MSSP. I've been doing that role for about 2 years, but I've been involved in SOAR for about the past 4. So, a bit about the talk. The ubiquitous nature of SOAR was kind of essentially the origin of the talk. We're getting more and more customers that are interested in SOAR, more vendors that claim to sell SOAR products, and jobs that are popping up left, right, and centre. It's a product with great potential, as long as you know what you want and why you want it. But I just want to go over some of the things that we've seen last sort of few years where actually maybe you can sort of benefit from our experience a little bit. So hopefully there'll be some useful things that you can use to maybe ask those questions of your own SOAR programs or guide your own SOAR experience if you haven't sort of started down that track yet. That being said, if you are fully embedded with SOAR in your environment, this talk might not be for you. It's more sort of like those early hints and tips and things that can hopefully guide you. And bit of a disclaimer, this is just my experience and opinions. It's totally cool to disagree with me or think I'm wrong. I'm almost certainly not correct on all of this. Not all SOAR platforms are created equally. Be wary of any company that tells you that it has SOAR capability. SOAR's not just about automation. SOAR's everything, all those built-in commands. Many of the platforms that are out there at the moment, you know, in reality, maybe they're an SA platform or an SR platform. They might do some of the automation, some of the response, but they're not doing all the 4 elements, or all 3 of the elements at least. If you've not already chosen a SOAR platform, make sure you're buying something that suits your purpose. If you just want something that's going to enrich your theme data, then use a theme that's got something like Smart Response or pre-built workbooks. If you need a full SOAR environment, then that's what you should be looking for. Some of the companies that say maybe they've got a seam SOAR solution, they actually expect you to write a lot of your own integrations for the text. And if that's the case, really, well, you could just hire a developer. It's going to be a lot cheaper. Give them an online IDE, get them to write a few sort of API hooks. If you're using a SOAR platform outright, you should have those orchestrations written for you for security technologies. Some of them out there are offering 600 built-in out-the-box capabilities that you can start using, pretty quickly once you've given it a few credentials. So, on top of that as well, a SOAR environment should aid with IR as well. So it's not just that you're running some orchestrations. You're not just looking at seam labs. You're actually potentially going to be running full breach environment sort of investigations within the SOAR platform itself. So, when buying a SOAR platform, I'd say we really need to focus on each of the elements. Orchestration commands should be simple and easy to use. Automation should be written for us. If not, then you're going to inherit a lot of technical debt. You need to employ devs. If the API changes, then you're going to have to get them to update it. Depending on how many technologies you're integrating and how many commands you're running, that can soon rack up. If one of those devs leave, you're going to regret it. So, you should also be using IR, like I've mentioned. The response element's literally in the name, right? We want to make sure that we can record our investigations. We want to be able to build timelines, show the evidence of everything when we find a compromise, store it all in one place and have that make the life of the IR team easier. Get away from that traditional note-taking thing. Make sure it's all collaborative in SOAR. A bit of a disclaimer, SOAR's definitely not a silver bullet, even though I might talk about it like it is. There's still a lot of hard work involved. But it's definitely a first step towards that sort of single pane of glass that we sort of want in security. Out of the box as well, it's not always a good thing. You shouldn't necessarily just be looking at something, because maybe the number of out of the box integrations, if the integrations that are there don't do anything for you, or it's not for technologies that you've got, you probably want to maybe reassess if that SOAR platform's right for you. Based on some of the companies that we've analysed and sort of looked at their technologies, the security technologies, and then compared them to a vendor, you can actually end up with a suite of technologies, and only a handful of them have usable APIs, and then only one of those APIs is actually in the SOAR platform in the first place. So you've really got to make sure that You assess your own needs against the platform and don't just pick it based on like a number. Same thing goes for playbooks. It's all well and good having 1,000 out the box playbooks and, capabilities there, or workbooks, whatever you want to call them. But if none of those playbooks solve a problem that your company has, then you've just got a load of space getting taken up on the box, and it's not really worthwhile using it. Obviously, if you're stuck with something that you've already purchased, or maybe it's been rolled into one of your products, it doesn't mean that you can't meet the criteria, but, you can still deliver on some of those things, and you should still look into it. And if you end up finding that, say, you're using a theme and you're using that sort of automated capabilities with that, you're going to hit a wall at some point. Maybe that's when you sort of say, now it's time to invest in SOAR as an actual sort of platform. Once you've chosen a SOAR platform, you're going to want to get everyone involved. You're going to want that from, day one, really. You don't just want a SOAR team that works in splendid isolation. So everything you produce is going to have an impact, even if you don't realize it. It's really easy to get carried away with, solving those first few problems that you see, and you actually don't realize the impact that it's had on the wider business. So if you focus on only one individual or one team, you're going to get quite a blinkered view of the real impact of the problem as it relates just to them. But that can actually end up causing you problems down the line. So, think about that as a simple example. You might have the SOAR is looking at theme alarms, it's enriching some of the data, and then it'll go put some sort of remediation in place. And that's going to happen in a couple of seconds. This might be saving your first and second line some time and effort, making them have a better job. It's also going to reduce the potential impact and MTTR of the given indicator or, security incident. But are the first line really going to have considered things like when the IOC should be timed out and removed from that block list, or who needs to know that the block's been put in place? Does an ITSM solution need to be updated for reports and things like that? So the more people we get involved when we identify a problem and a potential, SOAR solution, the more likely we are to get it right the first time. So, and that comes from knowing your stakeholders, knowing who you need to deliver the successful implementation. It goes beyond the development and the automation, and, you need to get involved with process analysts. You need to get people that can track the progress of your implementations and, make sure that it's successful and that they're delivering value. So on top of that, you're going to need political buy-in from stakeholders. You're going to need people in the C-suite that can sort of say, get it done. You're going to really need to make sure that you've got as many people backing it as possible to make sure that you don't get stuck with those blockers. Last thing you want is a backlog of cool stuff that you've made and some sort of politics is holding it up. So the sooner you get those people involved, the sooner you're going to achieve value from use cases. When I say use cases, key distinction here for me is playbook is just something that does the doing. It takes an input, it does some cool stuff, and it makes an output. A use case encapsulates that solution, that little bit of technology, the playbook, but it's also all those other dependencies, the stakeholders, the sign-offs, the definition of done, all your requirements, and how often it's delivered as well. So for me, SOAR is about delivering use cases, not just playbooks. So internal politics really is the sort of biggest pain point for me when it comes to sort of delivering SOAR. It doesn't matter, internal companies, external companies, whatever it is. If you can find the right person, you can often sort of expedite the delivery of things, but you've actually got to go out there and find them. So make sure you do things like stakeholder mapping, like really try and find who the sort of key holders are, who are the people that are responsible for making sure that you can get those credentials to AD, that you can put that block in place because it's been pre-approved, that sort of thing. With that as well, it's, the more people you've got involved, the more experts that you've got connections to. SOAR engineers or your developers that are making your use cases and helping build out your SOAR platform, they're not necessarily needing to be network engineers or, proxy, SIEM, firewall sort of streams, whatever. They just need access to those people. So the more people we're bringing on board, the more likely we're going to get the sort of right decisions made when we're implementing a block or responding to alarm, So think of it this way. Would you rather have your team able to send, a simple message, an email or something like that, and a proxy block gets put in place? or follow a more traditional method where you say, you know what, let's raise a ticket and then we'll wait until someone finds that ticket, picks it up, reads it, and then goes action it. With SOAR, you can get that response in seconds, and you can actually empower people that have no knowledge of how to use a proxy system, a SIEM system, whatever it is, to actually go do things with it, you know, get that remediation, pull back that log data, whatever it is. So, yeah, for me, by having those experts in the first place, you can use their expertise, put it into your SOAR platform, and then empower other team members to sort of essentially get a self-service capability for, you know, various security tools. This is pretty true as well when it comes to intel decisions. So if you're making a decision on threat intelligence, like, you know, if indicator is found in list, go do remediation. Make sure that it's not your development engineers that are making the choice on what is bad and what is good. Don't just rely on a tool or an open source intelligence list or whatever it is saying this is bad. Make sure you get your threat intelligence team involved or your IR team or whatever to actually really classify those IOCs that you might be making a decision on. So, and then finally for me, like I've talked about your sort of SOAR team as maybe something a little bit separate. So a strong SOAR team for me should involve your engineers. So that's someone that's going to build out those playbooks and really understand all the functionality of orchestrations, can help sort of train. You're going to need people that are good at integration, someone that can actually go out there, have the conversations, and make sure that you can connect your SOAR environment to your AV environment, to your SIEM environment, to your firewalls, so you can start pulling in commands from each of them, and actually, you know, some of the parts is essentially greater than the whole or whatever it is. So, and a BPA as well. You're going to need someone that can come in, a business process analyst, and do what needs to be done. Go find those stakeholders out, work out what the problem is in the first place, and actually get that mapped out and make sure that you are delivering value, but you're also sort of mapping that and you're able to communicate it to your stakeholders as well. And bonus on top of that, anyone that's got strong people skills. People might get upset about SOAR being rolled out. They might feel threatened by it. So sometimes you need someone that can kind of help you there. Measure of success for me is one of those really important things. Once you've got everyone involved and you've got a platform, you actually need to know that you're being successful. I think we need to move away from those, you know, traditional SLA type monitors and start using the platform for what it is. You can actually develop metrics in-house for how you deem your SOAR program to be successful and record them in the platform. So you've got access to them real time. You might have a, you know, web app access and phone app access where you can look at that, you know, at any time of day and go, yeah, we're actually really getting benefit from this platform. So if you develop your metric, try and make sure that it's recorded in your playbook, in your use cases. Use that sort of concept of metadata to record your success, as well as go out there and do the security thing that you want it to. I've got 3 examples that we can sort of say here at the moment. So we know that we've saved someone 18 hours with one playbook, because it'll take on average 18 hours to do the thing manually or in the traditional way. And we can do it in about 5 minutes. So we're saving them 18 hours every time that runs. Equally so, I can tell you last month, you know, we're running close to 6,000 use cases and automations. So that seems like decent metrics. And that with a single set of use cases, we saved 60 grand a year in labor. But, you know, are these actually what they seem? Money seems great until it becomes a stick to beat you with. If the platform costs you a certain amount, do you end up having to save the equal amount in labor to actually pay off your own platform? Because I know that people aren't measuring their AV and their SIEM platforms like this. And there is a SIEM a security platform. This is an investment. Focusing too much on money as a metric, it sort of means as well, you end up focusing on time and labor saved and not necessarily the things that's of the best security benefit. Equally so, 18 hours time saved, it seems great until you realize that this is probably going to be an outlier in most organizations. So does this mean that if you create your next playbook and your metric is time saved, well, when the next playbook use case takes 4 hours and then the next one developed only saves 10 minutes, things like that, these are going to look awful by comparison, right? So make sure that your key stakeholders, when they see these metrics, they see positivity. They see that reinforcement of success and value. Money and time, you're not going to keep that as consistently high once you've got those sort of big wins out the way. Use cases around a month as well. It seems pretty cool. You're like, oh yeah, we've done nearly 6,000 use cases, but really, who cares? There's no value in that number, right? What are the use cases? What are they automating? What was the impetus behind putting the use case there in the first place? So we could run 10 playbooks in that, nearly 6K, and they could have huge impacts, save the company from a natural compromise, and, they're valuable, but they're lost. The next 5,750 might just be closing false positives. So even though metrics seem really cool and seem like they're going to show that success, really try and think about, well, what is it that we're really trying to get across, and what is it that we want to be measured by? A bit of an example of this from the real world. We had SOAR informing a customer of an event within literal seconds of it occurring, and it took the humans that were kind of monitoring that event and creating tickets around it in an ITSM platform another 3.5 hours to tell the same customer about that data and about that event that had occurred. That 3.5 hours was still within SLA. So by those traditional measures, yeah, well done. That's a security success, right? That service is a success. But in real time, that's potentially, 3.5 hours that an attacker could have been dwelling on the network. So for me, using SOAR, it's time to get rid of those traditional metrics, those SLAs, and really move towards that sort of like, what's the value we can bring? It's that resolution, doing that thing in seconds, not hours, So choose your metric. I think MTTR is probably one of the best ones. And then once you've chosen it, stick with that. One of the old managers I worked with sort of said the last thing we need to do is automate chaos, and it kind of really stuck with me. So when we are choosing what we're going to want to automate, you've really got to understand why you're doing it and what it is that you're going for, Don't just try and automate as much as possible in one go. Pick the things that have those values that meet those metrics that we sort of just talked about. We want to understand the actual goal of the thing that's being automated. If we're looking into a process, just because it works one way now, doesn't mean that's the way it has to work as an automation. We really want to focus on what's the input, what's the output, and kind of don't worry. You can use your SOAR platform to do the process bit of it. So, an example here. We had a request in to essentially create a single pane of glass, which can be achieved for this specific example in a SOAR platform. Pull in all the alerts and their priorities from different platforms, put it all on the single dashboard. So we could achieve that. It seemed like a pretty good goal, but then when we started sort of workshopping it out with the customer, we realized that the reason that they wanted to see everything in one place is so they could tell people to respond to it a little bit faster. So we soon realized there that even though the goal seemed to be a sort of single pane of glass dashboard, it wasn't. The real goal was response and a faster response. So then instead we started working on how can we close those alarms down, close those alerts down, and actually resolve them. Because if you can access that data, you can probably go do something about it. So by implementing SOAR for them, we were able to say, yeah, you can have that visibility if you want, but you can also have the resolution happening before you even sort of get the chance to see it. So really for me, not automating chaos is all about making sure that the thing you're automating is following the sort of correct reasoning, that it's not just trying to automate the thing that's done now, but it's trying to automate the reason for the thing that's done now. Getting the correct output, not necessarily following the same process. So once you know what you want to make, you need to start making it. So slowly does it, right? The way that we deliver that is in incremental steps, right? So we'll take a use case and we'll break it down. It might be the first thing that we do is focus on an action from that playbook. So can we get the data from one place and present it to the user in another place. We're getting that value straight away. We don't have to be all singing and dancing. Once we know that's working, it's working consistently, then naturally we might want to enrich it. Okay, we've got the data. Can we add some more information from a CMDB, another security solution, that sort of thing? Deliver that, get it consistent, save people's time because they're able to use that enriched data and you've maybe saved them 60% of their job. Then move on to respond. Actually take those playbooks and sort of say, well, now that we know what the data is and we know that we're consistently getting it and that our users are able to react to the data that we've enriched, can we just make that decision for them in the first place? Can we go put that remediation in place? So then you build it into respond. You do not have to do everything out of the bag. Make those small wins, collect that value early doors, and you're going to see that actually, slowly does it. It's a much faster way of delivering your value. And then look at reuse. The beauty of SOAR is everything you build kind of fits in like, a bit of a building block or a jigsaw. When you develop one solution, it might be that multiple teams can use it, or that actually if you've got something that can go put a proxy block in place, well, is there another use case that can use that? So the more incremental building blocks that you use, the more that you've got to sort of play with and actually start delivering your value later even faster. So definitely sort of take it slowly, take it incrementally, and, building those iterations, essentially basically like Agile. One of the ways that we're sort of talking about slow delivery as well is making sure that you've got that priority. Don't rush into it. Don't try and take everything on all at once and try and deliver everything in parallel, right? If you try and deliver, like, say, 11 use cases at once, you're just going to find that you're context switching too much. You're only showing gradual gains and stakeholders will start getting frustrated and you really don't realize the value until much further down the line. By actually slowing down and sort of taking on just what your team can do, you can start to realize your value a lot sooner. If you focus on 2 or 3 priority use cases and you start delivering them, you deliver them faster, then you're claiming that value of it much earlier. So it's a serial sort of development and incremental development. I feel, even though it's going to seem slower to your stakeholders, it's actually a much faster way of getting success from SOAR. And people struggle with the priority thing. It's sort of like this concept of if everyone's got a fast pass, no one's got a fast pass, right? If everyone's coming to you and going, my thing's the highest priority, then nothing's the highest priority if everything's high priority. So you've got to be pretty strict in sorting out what your priorities are, whether that's money, MTTR, who's asking. But make sure you do that and, learn to say no to the people that are saying, I need this thing now. Because all it's going to do, the more you take on, the faster you try and work, the slower you're going to get that success and that value. So, yeah, finally, just to end, what's my opinion on SOAR? Where do we think we're going in the future? SOAR's not something that we should be worrying about. If you've got those problems and you get them in your SOAR environment, your SOAR team, not just a SOAR platform, remember, it's not a silver bullet, but your SOAR team and the broader people that support you, getting everyone involved, a SOAR program can be those solutions. You're going to get some profit. You're going to get some value to your organization by using it. Whether that's reduced MTTR, you're going to get happier people, whatever it is. So I think rolling out SOAR really can be a proper fresh start. It's a way to move away from traditional metrics and do things for the right reason, not because they've always been done that way. Oh, well, we always put this into an Excel sheet and then into this and then into this. Is actually the data that you want just like one thing that you could grab straight away? Think about actually doing things for the reason that we're doing them, not just because it's the way that it's always done. I think with SOAR, we're going to have to start using that as, in our RFPs as well. Because if products and security products don't offer APIs, I don't think we should be looking at taking them into our organizations anymore. We have to make sure that the more security alerts that happen, the less people that we can employ to actually go look at them, the more easily we need to be able to interact with them. So they're going to need APIs. So I really think SOAR should become a key decision maker, or will become a key decision maker when coming to purchasing your security technologies as well. So, with that, really, I'd probably just say thanks for your time. hopefully you've got some of use, and if anyone does want to talk, then you can sort of hit me up on, LinkedIn, Twitter, or something like that and ask questions. So thanks a lot.